guys, welcome to my channel. My name is ReadingBear and I hope you are ready for some more stories. And today, we'll take a look at some new entitled people content. If you enjoyed my content, please don't forget to subscribe to my channel and post some bear emojis in the comment. And now, let's dive right into the stories.
The first story is titled, Homeowner Association sued me for installing solar panels on my house and claimed they're an eyesore. There is a good reason that homeowners associations have a bad rap, and that's because most of them are full of power-hungry tyrants and Karens. I know from first-hand experience of dealing with one of these boards of nosy Nancys that they can be a nightmare to deal with. Our story starts in 2011 when my husband and I moved into a beautiful neighborhood with an unfortunate homeowner association board. We had just gotten married and knew that we wanted to start a family and experience all the normal things a new couple would do. We found my dream home, exactly where I wanted it. Close to my favorite stores, family, and in the best school district. However, we had no idea what we were going to get into when we moved into that house. Firstly, I had never really dealt with a homeowners association before, since this was the first house that either of us had ever bought. When our realtor was telling us about it, it didn't seem bad or scary or like it would be a problem at all. I honestly thought it was nice that we had a homeowner association because it meant that the neighborhood would look better, and people would be held accountable for their yards and such. No, I was very wrong. The homeowner association was not nice at all. These board members exist only to harass good, hardworking people who are just trying to live their lives peacefully. We lived there for only 1 month before we received our first threatening letter from the homeowner association. They didn't appreciate the way that my husband's truck was parked in the driveway. He has a very large Ford truck that he used for work. It has a long bed, and it doesn't fit in the garage properly, meaning that he parks it outside in the driveway. You know where one would park a car. Their problem was that the truck bed intersected with the sidewalk, meaning that if someone were taking a stroll they would have to skirt around the bed. It wasn't even long enough for someone to need to step into the road or anything, but apparently, it was breaking some kind of guideline or rule in the homeowner association handbook. Husband said whatever and did what they wanted. He just started pulling the truck as far up as it would go without hitting the garage door, which was literally centimeters, and that barely got the end of the bed out of the sidewalk area. I was willing to argue with them since I felt they were just being picky, but my husband wanted to avoid conflict. We managed to go several more months without having any more threatening letters about nonsense. That is until my husband decided to look into having solar panels installed. It's now almost a year into us living in this neighborhood. Everything seems to be going well and my husband decides to look into solar panels for the house. He is an environmental engineer and reducing our carbon footprint is extremely important to him. He felt that solar panels would also add a lot of value to the home and lower our bills. Well, the homeowner association did not agree. In fact, they were livid. We had looked through the homeowner association policies and rules and checked with our state's laws about them denying solar panels. Thankfully, we live in a state that has solar access rights and prevents homeowners associations from eliminating our right to put up solar panels on our roof. But our WA homeowner association does say that they have to be put in a place on the roof that cannot be seen from the road or other access points and match the roof color. Basically, they have to be hidden or impossible to see. They would rather them not be there is the truth. My husband felt like he didn't need to contact anyone on the board because he was following the rules they had put in the homeowner association handbook. The panels were being installed by a reputable company, close to the roof color and out of sight from the road. The business that was installing the solar panels had only been at work for an hour or two before some middle-aged couple rolled up in my yard on their golf cart. The woman proceeded to get off the cart and walked up to one of the workers, demanding that they cease and desist, handing them some unprofessional, typed-up Microsoft Word letter that they probably just put together before coming over. I was inside, working on my computer from home that day so that I could be there for the installers to do their job when I heard her screechy voice from my office. She was yelling about the eyesore that was on the roof. I went outside, hoping that it wasn't what I thought it would be. But of course, it was. I asked her how I could help her, and she proceeded to point her finger at me, accusing me of breaking homeowner association rules with the eyesore we were installing without the board's permission. At this point, I'm pissed. I'm not sure why she thinks that she can come onto my property and demand things and make accusations, but she was messing with the wrong lady. Oh, I forgot to mention that I am over 6 months pregnant at this point as well. So, I'm bloated and cranky too. I, as calmly as I could muster, took her paper and asked her and her husband to get off my property and we could handle this formally in a meeting as we were not in any violation of the rules since we were going strictly off their handbook's guidelines anyway. She continued to be belligerent but did leave after I walked away to go back inside. Unfortunately, the workers did have to stop for the day until we could handle the situation with Karen and the board. Which I was even more annoyed about because we still had to pay them for coming out even though they didn't get hardly any work finished. We were not wasting any more time. I called my husband, and he called his old college roommate, who is a successful lawyer. He started digging into our state's laws regarding solar panels and homeowner associations and then looked into the handbook we were given when we purchased the house. He agreed that we were completely compliant with their stupid rules and that they could not legally refuse to allow us to install them. Our lawyer friend typed up some legal paperwork and had it delivered to the Homeowner Association board and we got back to work on having the solar panels installed. At this point, Karen and her husband were not having it. The next day, I received a knock on the door at 8 a.m. It was her again and she had the legal papers that our lawyer delivered in her hand. She proceeded to curse at me and tore up the letter in front of my face and left the pieces of paper on the doorstep. I was so upset with her behavior that I slammed the door and refused to allow her to speak to me in the way she was. By that afternoon, I had a formal letter from the board summoning my husband and me to a meeting to take action against our insubordination. Before going to this meeting, I decided that I would talk with some of my neighbors, asking them how they felt about solar panels and sustainable energy. Shockingly, almost everyone that I talked to was very interested in installing them in their homes as well. I knew that I could use that to my advantage. They can't just pick on us if a dozen other homes are doing the same thing, right? It was about a week before the Homeowner Association board meeting, and they wanted to make sure that we were hurting every day up until that point. The Karen couple would drive past our house on their cart daily, sometimes multiple times to the point where it felt intrusive. And had a fine or shitty letter in our mailbox about something daily as well. Whether our grass was half an inch too long or our trash can was out for 10 minutes after they picked it up. Just ridiculous stuff that felt like harassment. At this point, I'm documenting everything. How much money we've spent on the lawyer. How much money we've lost from them stopping the workers several times. How much they've harassed us with no ground. All the Karen behavior I've been keeping track of. I even installed a camera to record how many times a day they are driving by or inspecting our property. They even went as far as fining us for the 3-inch tall Irish flag in the front window because it wasn't an approved flag. What? So, it was finally time to attend our meeting. I had all my paperwork, recordings, lawyer and husband ready to handle Karen and her brigade of nosy Nancys. I was shocked to find out that the board was just her husband and her neighbor, who is also her sister. I was also shocked to find out that dozens of other homeowners showed up to help us. Turns out, they too were sick of the little fines and power-hungry BS that they were handing out all the time. I actually think that Karen was just as shocked as me to find herself outnumbered in this meeting. I almost laughed at how nervous she looked. She started by saying that the solar panels were not approved and that we would have to take down what they have already installed and no longer be a nuisance that is bringing down the neighborhood's aesthetic. With that, our lawyer proceeded to drop a stack of legal documents, going over our state's laws about solar panels and how homeowner associations don't have any ground to deny them being put up. Plus, the Neighborhood Homeowner Association Handbook where he highlighted the specific rules and information that stated they were allowed as long as we followed the guidelines, which we complied with. Karen didn't like that and continued to argue with no leg to stand on. After a few more minutes of nonsensical disagreements, the rest of the room started getting louder. Homeowners murmuring about disbanding the board altogether and that they could take a vote right there and have them gone. The trio of board members realized right then that they had messed up and Karen's husband had to shut her up before she dug herself into an even deeper grave. They quickly left before we could vote to disband the board. After this meeting, everything was peaceful and quiet. The homeowner association tyrants weren't even driving around on the golf cart anymore to make regular inspections of everyone's grass length and mailbox color. It was great. We had our solar panels installed without issue by the next week. Several of our neighbors followed suit and had their own solar panels put up. The revenge doesn't stop there though. Not only did almost a dozen of my neighbors install solar panels on their roofs, but I took it upon myself to send the board a list of my own fees. It included all the money that they had cost me in lawyer fees and interrupting our work unnecessarily. Not to mention all the claims I made of harassment against them. It didn't take long to find out that the homeowner association had to spend all the money they had on paying me back. And they felt so hated that they actually ended up disbanding the board themselves, right, and both the Karen couple and her sister moved away. We still live in this beautiful neighborhood with no wah, plenty of lovely families and their solar panels. The next story is titled, I was told to do what I needed to do so I did it. This is very recent. I was living in a very bad part of a major metropolitan city that has lots of bad parts. After I moved in, I started noticing a lot of things that were unsafe. Most of the things, I brushed aside because they didn't necessarily affect me. 3 things I complained about were the fact that the common areas and most of the bedrooms had no smoke detectors. Then, because I get home when it's very dark, I complained about the porch lights not working. I was promised over and over that this would be fixed, but it never was. I pressed harder and threatened to call the city. I also withheld my rent to this point. The landlord, female, told me, there's nothing wrong with the house. Do what you need to do. So, I did. I called the city. An inspector came out and I showed him around the property. There were areas I couldn't give him access to, like the garage or the other tenants' rooms. He took lots of pictures and pointed out dozens of safety issues and building code violations. Turns out, this slumlord, referring to the owner, converted a 2-story house, 4-bed, 2-bath, into a 3-story house with 9 bedrooms and 9 bathrooms with no permits from the city. He, the owner, also had the home classified as an owner-occupied, single-family home, although it was clearly not, as there was no owner occupancy and there were 10 unrelated roommates. The landlord, female, harassed me through the whole process. She took my parking spot away and pitted other roommates against me. To make matters worse, she told everyone I wasn't paying rent. So, now I have these witches ganging up on me. It was so bad that I couldn't be in any of the common areas for even 1 minute without being harassed. I also got a bunch of notices accusing me of random things and an eviction notice because I wasn't paying rent. The report from the city came out and it had over a dozen violations, including some very serious ones. It was going to cost him tens of thousands of dollars to repair the house to get it up to standard. The house started to become safer. There were smoke detectors, railings for the stairs, working porch lights, a carbon monoxide alarm, and he was forced to put a railing on a balcony that had none. Through all of this, he's, the owner, making $10,000 per month in rent, charging for parking, and there's another large house on the property that he's renting. Plus, he, the owner, has multiple homes, 90 tenants in total. This guy, the owner, was making tons of money, but somehow the sentiment among some of the roommates was, how could you do this to this poor old man, the owner? My case went to court, and I got more time to find legal help. By the time the second hearing came along, another notice had been given as they got access to the entire house. Plus, they were still in violation and had not cured all of the problems, so they got fined daily. Then my court date was a week away and his attorney started to try and negotiate with me. I was asking for $16,000, and they knew I was going to get it because they were going to lose. I ended up settling for $7,000 and 30 days to move out, plus 8 months of rent forgiveness. I just did what I had to do. Edit. Some people are calling this post fake because of the fact that I've referred to a male and a female in my post. The landlord/manager is female, and the owner is male. It's pretty common for the owner of a home to hire someone to manage the properties, especially since this owner has 90 tenants. I'm not sure what's so suspicious about that. So now, I've gone through and put notes throughout my post to help the people with reading comprehension issues who are so stuck in every little detail that they are missing the big picture. Hope everyone can stop complaining about this now. Edit 2. I've learned a lot from the multiple times I've dealt with awful landlords. Living in Los Angeles with the huge problem with slumlords, you start to learn your rights and get sick of the shot and report it. So, I will always withhold rent if my rights are being violated or the house is unsafe, and the owner/landlord refuses to do anything about it. And for those that are saying he got off easy, it's so much easier to get rent forgiveness than money. Many people advise against withholding rent, but it has worked in my favor every single time because it either got the landlord to make repairs or it got the landlord to take me to court and I got a settlement and rent forgiveness. Example. In this case, it was much easier for the owner to swallow $7,000 plus 8 months of rent forgiveness than $15,000. I originally asked for $16,000, so that's just $1,000 less, in essence, than what I asked for. So, no, he didn't get off easy here. It would be different if I was harmed by his neglect, but I wasn't. Plus, usually the only way you get money from an eviction case is by settling. Eviction judges are there to determine evictions, not give out money. Yes, there are exceptions, but I would have, most likely won and not gotten evicted because I would agreed to move. But to get money, you usually have to take them to court separately and get a new attorney. It's so much easier to settle. In fact, at the initial hearing the judge orders you to go out in the hallway and negotiate before you go to plead your case. Judges much prefer when agreements are made. They also tend to throw out cases when the landlord and/or their attorney is trying to be manipulative and/or unreasonable and the tenant doesn't have legal representation. Judges hate to evict people, especially in Los Angeles. The last story is titled, "Thank you for reminding me of this fun story of revenge." TLDR. Little idiot tows other students out of his parking spot, so the police use my stupid idea to catch him. Little idiot loses his driver's license, his tow truck gets totaled, and he goes down on several vehicle theft charges, and no students' cars are ever messed with again. I'm at work on break browsing Pro Revenge while I wait for the next plane to come in. I'm literally just a gas station attendant for aircraft. And I was reminded of a funny story while reading someone's locker thief story. Obligatory, not my story. I was barely involved. Info leading up to the revenge. So back a while, at my other job at an animal shelter, myself and a couple coworkers were talking and one coworker mentioned that her son's car kept getting messed up in the student parking lot at the high school. So I asked why and she said that apparently another student has it in his head that one particular spot in the student parking lot is his despite there never having been assigned parking at that school. Now, this kid, who I'll call Little Idiot, has a tow truck. Not even one of those big flatbed trucks, it's a shitty little beater pickup with a tow hook in the back. If you've seen the movie Cars, think slightly bigger than Mater. Anyways, whenever someone parks in Little Idiot's spot, he then tows that person's car out and parks in the aforementioned spot, usually damaging the vehicle in the process. Well, while my coworker was telling us this, I said, "You know what would be funny? Parking the Bearcat in that spot and weighing it down. It'd be ducking hilarious to see that little idiot try and tow that big chungus of a vehicle." The chief of police was chatting with us. The animal shelter in my hometown is considered part of the police department and officers will occasionally visit us every once in a while. And he laughed and said, "I would love to see that." The revenge. So, to start, the state I live in, according to the laws, moving a vehicle a certain distance without the owner's consent and without proper towing permits is considered vehicle theft. I was told this story a few days later, so here's how it went down. The police chief placed a bait truck in the parking spot and set up a couple undercover units close by and the truck itself was weighed down with a crapload of cement bags. My coworker said she was surprised the truck didn't collapse under the weight. Sure, as hell, Little Idiot shows up, sees the truck in his spot and attempts to tow it away. Now, the plan was for the undercovers to come out and arrest him right then and there. What happened was that Little Idiot did a burnout trying to move the truck. He was successful for a few feet, at least the bare minimum for a misdemeanor, and then the back axle popped out of the tow truck. The undercovers came out and arrested Little Idiot. The camera footage was obtained which showed the roughly 100 other times he's done this, which of course only bumped up his charges. Thanks for listening.